put Hillary Clinton in jail, and he accused her husband of sexual misconduct before tens of millions of viewers, and an audience which included 3 women that Trump had invited who accused Bill Clinton of past abuse. He gave voice to the allegations against the former president. He did apologise for the locker room talk tape in which he bragged about groping women, but said, if you look at Bill Clinton, far worse. Mine was words, his was action. For her part, Hillary Clinton said Trump's lewd comments merely showed his true self. This is who Donald Trump is, she said. Well, let's hear exactly what they said. Firstly, how Trump turned the tape talk into something completely different.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people. Certainly I'm not proud of it. But this is locker room talk. You know, when we have a world where you have ISIS chopping off heads, where you have, and frankly, drowning people in steel cages, where you have wars and horrible, horrible sights all over, where you have so many bad things happening. This is like medieval times. We haven't seen anything like this, the carnage all over the world. And they look and they see. Can you imagine the people that are frankly doing so well against us with ISIS? And they look at our country and they see what's going on. Yes, I'm very embarrassed by it. I hate it. But it's locker room talk, and it's one of those things. I will knock the hell out of ISIS. We're going to defeat ISIS. ISIS happened a number of years ago in a vacuum that was left so because of bad judgment. And I will tell you, I will take care of ISIS. So we can get on to much more important things and much bigger things.
What we all saw and heard on Friday was Donald talking about women, what he thinks about women, what he does to women, and he has said that the video doesn't represent who he is. But I think it's clear to anyone who heard it that it represents exactly who he is, because we've seen this throughout the campaign.
Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump now with me here on set. 2 guests, Doug Herbert, our international commentator, and also Antoinette Lorraine, who's Vice President for Republicans Overseas. Thanks very much to both of you for being with us here on set. Doug, first of all, let's start with you. Many saying this was Trump's last chance, if you like. Do you think he saved his campaign?
Well, first of all, remember the context here. I mean, to the extent that any debate can really change the dynamic and the equation of the campaign, rarely does a presidential debate completely change the direction and dynamic of a campaign. There could be gotcha lines, a few things that people repeat years later, a few moments. They generally melt away, and faster than ever in our 24-hour Fast and Furious Twitter cycle. I mean, you know, we forget remarks barely a few hours later. We're no longer speaking about certain remarks. We're moving on to the next thing. But then again, you have to remember the context in which this comes. And it is a context in which you heard millions of people across America, one of the most widely watched videos in recent political times, heard a video in which Donald Trump, yes, albeit at 11 years ago, 59-year-old Donald Trump, in his voice, absolutely him, essentially admitting that he had forced himself on women and, using cruder terms than I'll use on air, groped their genitals. That's pretty serious stuff. You can understand that a lot of women, obviously not all women, he has a lot of supporters who, no matter what he says up there, are not going to change their vote for Donald Trump. But you do have millions of women, I suspect, who are listening with 2 soundtracks in their head. The soundtrack of what he was saying up there on the stage that night, and perhaps looking for some sign that this is indeed a changed Donald Trump, that he is not the same man as that 59-year-old Donald Trump who got off the bus in that video that everyone listened to over the weekend. The open question is, did they hear that? And would it make them inclined, if they weren't going to vote for Donald Trump, to change their votes? Because we're already talking about a small number of undecided voters getting smaller by the day and by the week. So we're really looking at a very, very select segment of voters. We're not going to know this until the polls come out. My hunch is that, to the extent that I said debates don't change a campaign, Donald Trump didn't do anything tonight of the level of magnitude of contrition that perhaps would have been necessary in order to sway anyone who was inclined to change their minds about him to change their mind.
Well, let's ask that to Antoinette Lorraine, who's Vice President for Republicans Overseas here in France. Thanks very much for being with us. Did Donald Trump save his campaign? I mean, can you change your opinion of it? Could you vote for him personally?
Yeah, I already voted for him last week. To be honest, I mailed in my ballot.
And you still would, even after what's happened over the weekend?
Yeah, I'm not. I think today, in today's world, that we're looking for, there's a lack of confidence, and we're looking for any little thing and to turn it into a huge. this is common talk, men's locker room talk, as he said. I know this exists. It exists in the female circles. It exists in the male circles. Mostly when we don't know we're being recorded. Among people that we feel very comfortable with. Um,
But I mean, not all men would talk like that, though, would they? I mean, do you not think it shows
no, of
the
course,
way that he views men?
not all men, no, but a lot, and a lot of women too. We've all said things. I mean, he was a little bit old for. I find it a little bit adolescent, his comments, and very inappropriate. But this was before he knew that he would be running for presidential candidate.
Anthony, but I just have a question because in light of what you're saying, okay, you're personally willing to sort of look beyond the video. You say it's locker room talk, a lot of
And it was
videos,
filmed without his consent.
and women as well. But what about Hillary Clinton made a point in this particular debate of saying it's not just women, and then she brought up a whole litany of things that Donald Trump has said, from Muslims to POWs to people with disabilities to Hispanics to African Americans. The list does go on. I'm not making it up, right?
No, you're not. Yeah.
Do you? Was there any point, I suppose, the question being, in this campaign, when you as a Republican who has voted for Donald Trump has had pause for thought, you said,
Yeah,
let me
this
reconsider.
made me pause. It really did. I said it was too late because I already mailed in my ballot. But I think Clinton is the last person to be telling anyone or judging anyone on how they treat women, given her reputation. Trump, in tonight's debate, he gave an explanation. He explained that he was very embarrassed, and I would be too, and I believe him. I asked among my colleagues in the social circle what would be the appropriate response to convince people that he's very sorry. Some people think he should get on his knees and pray for forgiveness in church, or cry like Bill Clinton did when he was caught lying to the people. What's the appropriate response that would convince people that he's really sorry? For me, because he didn't know he was the president, he's not a public figure like her. He doesn't know that when there's a hot mic or that could ever be used against him. And I find it really alarming, alarming that it came out 48 hours before the debate. I can't help but wonder.
The problem is, though, the difficulty is if you have paused, then there's no way that he's going to attract those wavering voters that Doug was talking about earlier. And that's what he needs to do if he's going to win this election.
It's our responsibility to think about things before, if he was advocating violence, and I think he said that he was groping women, well, yeah, that's very inappropriate. Everything that he said was very inappropriate. But he was not advocating violence. He didn't do it. He didn't. He's saying things like a man. I mean, for me, I'm not offended.